I was giving a talk yesterday, and at the end of the talk I asked everybody that if you have any questions, just feel free to email me offline because we didn't have much time. And a lot of people actually had questions on public speaking, and I was surprised because it wasn't a talk on public speaking. So I'm going to take up all of those questions, and here's the first one. A person has asked, is humor important in your speeches? Because yesterday's speech, there was a lot of humor. So he's asking, in general, is humor an important element of public speaking? You know what? I feel it is. You don't have to come across as a comedian because that's not what you're supposed to do. If you come across as a comedian, then it looks like, you know what, these are well-timed jokes, or it becomes a comedy show. What is important is having a speech that is witty and humorous. In fact, if you check out TED Talk, the top 25 TED Talks, you'll see all of them except maybe one or two will use the style of humor. Humor actually makes people connect with each other better because we've been telling jokes, we ease up with people when we use humor, and all of the top 25 talks except a couple of them, if they're using humor, then they're on to something. And you know, the two that aren't using humor, those are done by Indians on TED. And I'm not saying that their style isn't good. They have an awesome style. That's why they made it in the top 25%. But you relate to people better when you're using humor. Now, I'm not a humorous person, nor am I witty or charming naturally, but these are things that I've learned. I've always said that wit is learned spontaneity. I was not a witty person until one day I read a book called Do You Talk Funny? And I said, you know what, if this guy says it's possible, I'm going to do it. And I use techniques like even on my phone in the notes section. Every time I hear a one-liner or something funny, or I read something funny, or I'm listening to something funny while I'm driving, I'll pull over the car and I'll note it down quickly because one day in life I'm going to use it. And that one day comes pretty quick. You know what I do is right before I enter a speech or right before I enter a room or a dinner party or anything, I'll go over these one-liners I have in my phone. And in my computer, I have a much longer section. It's called speech and writing phrases. And before any big speech, I'll go over them and I'll try to see how I can incorporate them in my speech. What happens is that because I'm going over these things time and time again, each time I go over that list, I'll use at least one or two of them. And when I use these ones often enough, they become me, and they become part of my personality, and they become part of your personality. It's just that easy. And this is how people start to recognize you as, and it becomes pretty good. And you know what? A few years ago, I read a line that witty people are more intelligent than other people. I didn't know whether to believe this or not. And then I started observing that a lot of people that make these wisecracks and one-liners are actually pretty intelligent people. And sometimes we don't consider them very smart. Like, you know, a class clown might not be the smartest person in the class. But if you go back to the psychology of it, the person is a class clown because he was looking for a creative outlet because the classroom wasn't creative enough for him. That's why he became the class clown. So there might be a lot of truth to that. There's a concept called jokes per minute. I love this concept. It's not my concept. I borrowed it from Toastmasters. So jokes per minute works like this. I'll get somebody in my room and I'll say, hey, why don't you guys see how many jokes I have in my speech? So what they'll do is, and every couple of minutes, if I don't have a big laughter moment, and every couple of minutes, if I don't have at least one or two laughter moments, we'll put more jokes in there. Now, I'm not going to make people rolling on the floor with my witty speeches, but you know, sometimes when the intellect quotient is really high, I know people will get exhausted really quickly. So there's a joke in there all the time. And I have certain themes of my jokes that in a lot of my speeches, I'll use my wife as that antagonist, and I'll always be making fun of that woman. And she doesn't know this at home. I guess now she'll figure it out. But it becomes a theme, and this is how people recognize these things. And I've had people come to me afterwards who took me a little too seriously and said, well, why do you always make fun of your wife? Is she really that type of person? I said, no, we do it in good fun. It's fun. And one of my heroes, Zig Ziglar, he used to do this all the time, and I always thought it was fun. And nobody really believes it after a while. It's just funny. If your speeches have a lot of wit and humor, you're going to sound more interesting, and therefore people are going to be interested in what you're saying. If you're watching this on LinkedIn or Facebook, do like and share this. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel, guys.